fast, Don Ryan. These have always brought me luck.
White Diamonds, the intriguing new fragrance from Elizabeth Taylor.
£21 gets you from Manchester to London and back in a reserved seat. Welcome to Intercity.
A racing team unparalleled. Unmatched. Untouchable. Tuesday, 10:45. Extraordinary People uncovers Williams the Champions.
Now on Granada for the news and sports results this Saturday afternoon, we join ITN.
Hello, this is ITN's News and Sports Results Service.
Later on, we'll have the full classified soccer results.
Today's main news. Major tells Tory Euro rebels disunity is a luxury we cannot afford.
And this afternoon's main sports headline. The Underwood brothers combine to help England beat Scotland for the Calcutta Cup.
The Prime Minister has publicly called on Tory Eurosceptics to unite behind him and the party. Mr Major told the Conservative Central Council in Harrogate that disunity is something the party cannot afford. He said he understood the rebels' fears, but Britain would pay an enormous economic price if the Maastricht Bill failed.
After letting his cabinet snarl like a pack of Rottweilers at the Tory Euro rebels yesterday, Mr Major decided on the gentler touch today by appealing for party unity.
Let me say it bluntly. Disunity is a luxury we cannot afford.
Mr Major said he understood the instincts and patriotic feelings of those with doubts about Maastricht.
But I have another responsibility. I have to make sure we build a great future for this country as well. So let me tell you clearly and frankly that I believe the fears of those who resist our European policy are mistaken.
Mistaken because Britain outside Europe would pay, the Prime Minister said, an enormous economic price. He ended his speech recalling last year's election victory.
And how did we win? By sticking to our principles, by keeping our nerve, by standing together, and above all, by staying together, united as a party. That is how we won, and that is a lesson we must never forget.
But on Europe, the Prime Minister's dilemma remains that with a majority down now to 20, he cannot yet force a vote to close down the Maastricht debate in the Commons. Appeals for unity are, for the moment, the best he can do. Michael Brunson, ITN, Harrogate.
Well, Michael Brunson joins me now live from Harrogate. Mike, not as tough a line from the Prime Minister as some expected.
No, I think he's got two problems, really. One is that the arithmetic I was talking about really does constrain him. It's no good, Mr Major, calling the rebels bluff at the moment, because procedurally he couldn't actually win one of the votes in the Commons. That's going to be the big showdown. Is going to come at third reading. But the other problem is that even if he makes a great battle at the moment with the rebels, he's got the fallout, the aftermath in the party. And as he was saying to us, he's got a party to run this summer and next summer and for some time to come.
Did you notice any difference in the actual tone of his speech?
Well, I did rather, yes. He, I think, has realised that the sort of, if you like, nudge and wink remarks that he's been making, for example, in the Independent interview, are no good because they get misinterpreted. And so today he was determined to be very direct on crime and on things like TV violence, trying to set out on manufacturing industry to do exactly what his thoughts are.
Thank you, Mike. Well, after the Prime Minister's speech, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Paddy Ashdown, called on Mr Major to stop kowtowing to the Euro rebels and get on with doing what's best for Britain. The Labour leader, John Smith, was also in Yorkshire. He chose to attack the government's record on rebuilding Britain's manufacturing industry. He described Conservative policy as a tragedy.
In Scarborough, the Labour leader John Smith reserved his fire today for the Prime Minister's concern about manufacturing. Mr Major said he wanted to see more of the things that mattered made in Britain. For John Smith, that was little short of hypocrisy. He's just toured the Leyland DAF works where the receiver has been called in and 900 people made redundant, despite exporting half their output.
So, Mr Major, if you mean what you say about manufacturing and about made in Britain, I give you a simple test. Act now to save Leyland DAF.
Labour believes the Prime Minister's newfound concern for manufacturing industry will only serve to highlight his government's failures. Labour says that whatever the Prime Minister believes, most people are going to blame a Conservative administration that's been in power 14 years for 3 million unemployed. Joe Andrews, ITN, Scarborough.
Mine workers have voted by a large majority for protest strikes over the government's pit closure plans. Union leaders will decide next week when to call the first stoppage. The President of the Board of Trade, Michael Heseltine, said the decision will make it harder to avoid the closures.
Another rally against pit closures in Staffordshire as the government is poised to decide on the future shape of the industry. NUM leader Arthur Scargill was speaking as the strike ballot result came through.
I can tell you that the miners have just voted by 60% to take 24-hour strike actions.
The last time the NUM secured a majority for national industrial action was 1987, but feelings are now running high.
I'm very pleased. I hope the trade union movement as a whole support the miners and don't leave them isolated as they have done in the past. This time's got to be the last time.
Brilliant, brilliant. Very pleased. It's tremendous. It isn't as many as we'd like, but we've got the vote we want, the yes vote.
British Coal today condemned the action, calling it reckless. Mine workers would lose pay and their redundancy would be affected. British Coal is threatening to close up to 31 pits because the power generators want to cut back on supplies. But ITN has learnt the negotiations are still bogged down. A new 5-year contract will not provide salvation. Just 10 million tonnes is on offer for the first 2 years, saving 7 of the 31 pits. But at the end of the contract, just 5 million tonnes, only 3 of the 31 remaining. The President of the Board of Trade, Michael Heseltine, said the decision of mine workers to strike only confirmed the decision of customers to move away from coal.
A 12-year-old boy who was being bullied at school has hanged himself with his brother's school tie. Stephen Woodhall was found by his 7-year-old sister. His father blamed the bullies for his death.
The boy's father fought back tears today as he told how his daughter Emma found 12-year-old Stephen's body in the bedroom of their home in Smethwick.
Next thing I know, Dad, Stephen's hanging. Well, panic. I just run up there. The tie he had round him was loose. As I could take it off him, I lay him down. I give him mouth to mouth.
He said his son had been the victim of school bullies since starting at the nearby Shiland High School last September. They would take his dinner from him, and there'd recently been a fight.
He's gone through too much. 12-year-old. They were going to break his arm and his leg for £1 if he didn't bring it the next day to school. He's had that.
Education officials have already started an inquiry. School governors at Shiland High will hold an emergency meeting on Monday. David Crabtree, ITN, in Smethwick.
The escaped Strangeways prison rioter Alan Lord was recaptured by police in Manchester today after nearly 3 weeks on the run. Lord, who was serving life for murder, was often seen on the roof during the 4-week riots which wrecked parts of the prison and left 2 men dead. He and 4 others had broken free from a courtroom during their trial in Manchester on riot charges. Aid officials say that the sick and wounded from the besieged Muslim enclave of Srpska in eastern Bosnia are dying at the rate of up to 30 a day. General Philippe Morillon, the United Nations commander in Bosnia, has now succeeded in visiting Srpska. He said he found no evidence of Serb atrocities there. Aid destined for the area is still being held up.
They are dying not far from here, dying of cold and exhaustion. And yet here on the Serbian-Bosnian border, their only hope, a UN relief convoy, is stuck. The Serbs say it cannot go further. They are stopping the UN at will, flagging down convoys, and no longer allowing news teams to go into the area to report on the situation.
No.
The UN commander in Bosnia, General Morion, has been negotiating with all sides, trying to get relief to the thousands of people either wounded or fleeing.
At the confrontation line,
The general knows that with every day that passes, more civilians are dying as they flee from the fighting in this extreme weather. It all leaves aid officials with a deep sense of outrage. Food, transport, blankets, sitting here idly, while a short distance away refugees are dying in this bitter cold. The roads to the besieged Muslim enclave remain closed, and this evening no sign of progress. The United Nations proving unable to stop the Serbian offensive, unable even to offer minimal relief. Robert Moore, ITN, on the Bosnian-Serbian border.
Now, sports news. Graham Miller has the latest.
England won the 100th Calcutta Cup match at Twickenham, beating Scotland by 26 points to 12. It was England's fourth consecutive win over the Scots. Tries from the Underwood brothers capped a fine team performance, leaving England on course for the Five Nations Championship.
At first it was going Scotland's way, but 10 minutes after putting his team 6-3 ahead, Craig Chalmers was carried off injured, and it all began to go horribly wrong for the Scots. A Jeremy Guscott try, converted by Jonathan Webb, and England were 11-6 up by half-time. After the break, the English dominated. Just 5 minutes after scoring this try, Rory Underwood passed the ball to brother Tony, and the game moved beyond Scotland's reach as he completed an Underwood brothers double whammy. Their mum was the most delighted and excited England supporter at Twickenham. Too late Gavin Hastings' penalties weren't enough to revive the fortunes of the Scots. So Scotland have been denied the Triple Crown, while England are back on course to retain the Five Nations Championship.
Ireland provided a shock in this afternoon's other Five Nations match. They beat Wales in Cardiff by 19 points to 14. It was their first win in 12 championship matches. Ireland's try came on the half hour, O'Hara setting up Brian Robinson for his 6th international score. Ian Evans pulled a try back for Wales in the second half, but by then it was too late. On the football now, and Ian Wright has kept Arsenal on course for a Wembley double. In the FA Cup quarter-final at Ipswich, Wright's 61st minute penalty put the Gunners 2-1 up at Portman Road. Chris Kiwomya had put Ipswich into a first-half lead. Tony Adams then equalised for Arsenal, his first goal for a year before Wright restored the lead. And an own goal from Phil Whelan made it 3-1. Boncho Genchev, though, pulled one back for Ipswich, but Kevin Campbell made it 4-2 to Arsenal in the final minute, so Arsenal into the semi-finals. No score in today's other quarter-final tie between Blackburn and Sheffield United. That ended 0-0 at Ewood Park. In Scotland, no shocks for Rangers in the Tennent's Cup. Mark Hateley scored the first of Rangers' 3 goals to end the Cup dreams of Second Division Arbroath. Meanwhile, back in England, Manchester United look set to return to the top of the Premier League in England. Mark Hughes put them a goal up against Liverpool at Anfield. Ian Rush equalised early in the second half, but Brian McClare restored United's lead to lift them a point clear of Aston Villa. Now, Upton Park was packed this afternoon for West Ham's first home game since Bobby Moore's death 10 days ago. There were hundreds of floral tributes, the biggest carried by 2 of Bobby Moore's former West Ham and England teammates, Geoff Hurst and Martin Peters on the left. Later, West Ham and Wolves players joined the crowd for a minute's silence before the kick-off. And Hartlepool have ended their goal famine after 1,227 minutes. Andy Saville equalised against Blackpool. That was Hartlepool's first goal since January the 2nd. Now, Graham Gooch returned home from England's 3-0 Test defeat in India today and hinted that he's ready to stay on as captain against Australia this summer. Gooch flew into Gatwick this morning while the rest of the squad were heading for Sri Lanka. He admitted it's every player's dream to beat Australia on home soil, but accepted he had to take some of the blame for England's performance.
Philosophical enough to realise that, if things are not going right, the captain takes all the stick. I mean, that's fair enough. I've already said at press conferences before that, when things don't go right, the captain takes responsibility, and I hold my hands up and say we're not good enough. I'm not making excuses about anything. We didn't play well enough, and if you don't play well on the field, you're not likely to win.
Now it's time for the full classified check, read as ever by Bob Colston.
Beginning with the FA Cup 6th round. Blackburn 0, Sheffield United 0, and Ipswich 2, Arsenal 4. FA Premier League, Liverpool 1, Manchester United 2. Queen's Park Rangers 3, Norwich 1, and Wimbledon 1, Southampton 2. Barclays League Division 1, Barnsley 2, Leicester 3. Birmingham 1, Oxford 0. Bristol City 1, Tranmere 3. Millwall 0, Sunderland 0. Newcastle 5, Brentford 1. Notts County 3, Bristol Rovers 0. Peterborough against Grimsby is a late result. Portsmouth 2, Luton 1. Southend 0, Charlton 2. Watford 0, Swindon 4. And West Ham 3, Wolves 1. Division 2, Blackpool 1, Hartlepool 1. Bolton 1, Leyton Orient 0. Bournemouth 1, Exeter 3. Bradford 1, Hull 2. Brighton 0, Port Vale 2. Fulham 0, Reading 0. Huddersfield 1, Rotherham 1. Mansfield 2, Wigan 0. Plymouth 4, Preston 0. Stoke 4, Chester 0. And West Bromwich Albion 2, Burnley 0. Division 3, Crewe 3, Gillingham 0. Not on the pools, Halifax 0, Carlisle 2. Lincoln 2, Northampton 0. Rochdale 1, Cardiff 2. Scarborough 1, Bury 3. Scunthorpe 0, Chesterfield 1. Shrewsbury against Barnet is a late result. Torquay 0, Darlington 2. And Wrexham 2, Hereford 0. Pisa Homes League Premier Division, Cheltenham 0, Hastings 1. Crawley Town 1, Moor Green 1. Gloucester 1, Bashley 1. Hensford 3, Burton 0. Solihull 1, Dorchester 0. Trowbridge 0, Dover 2. Weymouth 1, Atherstone 3. And Worcester 0, VS Rugby 0. Tennant Scottish Cup 5th round. Aberdeen 1, Clydebank 1. Not on the pools, Arbroath 0, Rangers 3. Hearts 2, Falkirk 0. And Hibernian 2, St Johnstone 0. Scottish Premier Division, Airdrie 1, Dundee United 3, and Dundee 1, Motherwell 1. Scottish Division 1, Ayr 3, Cowdenbeath 1. Hamilton 1, Dumbarton 1. Raith 2, Morton 0. St Mirren 0, Dunfermline 1, and Stirling against Kilmarnock is a late result. Scottish Division 2, Berwick 0, Clyde 1. Not on the pools, East Fife 2, Alloa 2. Forfar 1, Stenhousemuir 0. Montrose 1, Albion 1. Queen of the South 1, Brechin 2. And finally Stranraer 4, Queen's Park 2.
Now let's see how those results have affected the league tables. Let's start with the Premier League here in England. And there we are, Manchester United back on top, a point clear of Villa, who don't play this weekend. Norwich still in third, having lost to Queen's Park Rangers, who are in fourth place. Norwich's first defeat in London this season. Now let's move on to the First Division. Newcastle 7 points clear of West Ham. Swindon moving up into third position after their win today. Portsmouth fourth, they beat Luton, and Millwall in fifth place. And to the top of League Division 2, Stoke, well clear now of Port Vale. Both Stoke and Port Vale won quite comfortably today. Stockport in third place, West Brom fourth, and Orient in fifth. All those clubs on 55 points. Bolton in sixth place, some 6 points behind. Now let's see if there's any news on the late kick-offs. Here we are in Division 1, 1.5 points. Peterborough 1, Grimsby 0, but no final score yet in Division 3 between Shrewsbury and Barnet. Barnet were losing, and Scottish League Division 1, Stirling Kilmarnock, still no score yet. And now look at the all-important pools news. Well, no decision yet, but it's looking good to me. 8 jackpot draws. These are the numbers: 17, 23, 37, 38, 44, 48, 50 and 56. No high-score draws, but 4 no-score draws. And here they are, 1, 9, 22 and 43. Still those 2 results to come in, numbers 33 and 53. No decision yet, but it's fingers crossed time, I reckon. That's it, Carol?
Graham and I will be back with more news and sport at 10 to 10. From both of us, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Hello, good evening. Sunshine is likely to be rather hit and miss again tomorrow, but it'll be a dry day for most of us, and before that a fairly dry night too. Just a few spots of light rain and drizzle up in the far north. A fair amount of cloud around generally, but where the cloud does break, there'll be mist patches forming fairly quickly, and temperatures dipping to within a degree or 2 of freezing in parts of the north. On to tomorrow then, basically a dry day, at least for most of the day, and some sunshine here and there, the best of it, as today, over eastern parts of Scotland and eastern counties of England too. Mind you, western parts of England, the Manchester area, Merseyside and Cheshire could be a bit brighter tomorrow than they were today. Rain coming into the far northwest late in the day though, but not soon enough to stop a basically warm day for most of us by March standards. Temperatures generally close to double figures and perhaps as high as 12 or 13 in the best of the sunshine. Enjoy a dry day.